Hey, what's up, and welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today we are going to be deconstructing the narrative again. I have not been doing any of these videos for a while, and I don't know really why, but I feel like I should again because of The Irishman. And The Irishman is a film that I think was made well enough from a lot of technical areas, but when it comes down to its narrative is kind of sloppy. It's missing a lot of key elements that a narrative should have. Let's get cracking. So the first thing that I want to see in any movie is an introduction, right? You want to be introduced to the world, you want to be introduced to the characters, and that's one thing that The Irishman really does well, right? Because it takes forever to introduce everything. It's a very long movie, so you're getting introduced to characters, you're getting introduced to the setting. It does a very good job with this, and I'm not gonna bash it for it because of that. So when it comes down to the scoring, I'm definitely gonna give this 2 out of 2 possible stars. There's nothing wrong with the introduction. But one of the problems with this movie is that it's partially all introduction. It's all about characters. It's very heavily invested in the characters, so it doesn't have the next thing that it needs to have, which is the initial inequity. Otherwise known as a story driver, the initial inequity is all about what's happening in this world that causes a rift between the characters, right? Something happens, an idea, an event, and a decision. It happens to everybody, whether they know it or not. Every character in the story should be able to provide a perspective on this thing, the story driver, right? And eventually it causes the actual story problem that Protagonist is eventually going to try to solve. But The Irishman does not have an initial inequity. It doesn't have an overall problem that anybody is trying to solve because everybody is fine with being a mafia member, right? There's nothing that anybody is seeing a problem with. So this is getting 0 out of 2 possible stars. The next thing that you want to see out of any given story is a story goal and the obstacles to get there, right? So what the story goal is basically what needs to happen to solve that initial inequity. And the obstacles obviously are the steps you need to take to get to that point. So let's look at an example for a second. Back to the future, right? Marty is accidentally sent into the past. That is the story driver. That's what changes. That's what causes the rift. The story goal is Marty has to get back to the future, but he can't do it right away. He has to go through the obstacles. That is, finding wherever the heck Doc Brown is in the past and waiting for the lightning to strike and trying not to interact with people that might know him in the future, like his parents. That is the story driver. That is the story goal. That is the obstacles. And The Irishman does not have any of these, okay? It really doesn't. It's just a collection of things that happen. And a lot of people say, well, the plot of The Irishman is simply a big part of our country's history, and I would agree with you, except that's not a plot, that's a setting. The next thing that you want is story consequence. Story consequence is incredibly important because it sets the tone of urgency. Why are our characters doing what they're doing right now as opposed to later? In Back to the Future, Marty has to get to the future, but why is he doing this now? He has a time machine. Why doesn't he just do this whenever? Well, 1, his time machine is broken, but 2, and most importantly, is because he's causing a ripple effect in the past. He's causing his own self to cease to exist. So that's why he has to do this right now. That's his sense of urgency. Once again, we don't have a story problem. We don't have an initial inequity. We don't have anybody trying to solve it, so we don't have any real sense of urgency. Again, things are just happening to happen. Next, you want to look at who is the protagonist, who is the antagonist, and what does that mean as a whole. A protagonist is a function more than it is a person. A protagonist is trying to rectify the problem set forth in the initial inequity, right? And again, there is no initial inequity, so there is no problem to solve. So there is no protagonist, right? When you don't have a murder, you don't hire the homicide detectives to come to you. When you have really clean windows, you don't hire window cleaners. And because there is no protagonist, there can't be an antagonist, because an antagonist is written to be diametrically opposed to the protagonist's goal, and if there isn't a protagonist, there can't be an antagonist either. You can see the snowball effect rolling down the hill. The next thing that you want out of any given story is a main character and influence character. What are those? Well, a lot of people think that the main character is the same thing as the protagonist. That is often the case. When they are the same person, that's when you call them a hero of the story. But sometimes they are split apart. And in the case of The Irishman, the main character is Robert De Niro, and the influence character is Jimmy Hoffa. What do they mean to each other? Well, basically, they challenge each other on a path, right? They come to a crossroads, and they have to influence one another which person is right, and sometimes the events can be deadly, as seen in The Irishman. In The Irishman, the challenge that Robert De Niro runs into is where his loyalties lie. Is it with Jimmy Hoffa, or is it with Joe Pesci's character? And that's where he has to make that big decision that decides how his character grows. The Irishman does have this, and it does it very, very well, and that's not super surprising given the fact that this is a very character-centric film. So this definitely gets 4 out of 4 possible stars. The last two things that you want out of a narrative is a climax and a resolution. When it comes down to The Irishman, I didn't really sense that much of a climax because it never clued the audience in on where the story was going, because there was no initial inequity. There was no problem that anybody was ever trying to solve. Things just kept on happening over and over again without any real direction. So when the climax eventually happened, I wasn't entirely sure what it was. I can make an educated guess as to what it was, but I don't know if I'd be right or wrong, because nothing about it felt bigger or grander than anything else in the film. It just felt somber and calm like everything else in the movie. So in the end of the day, the climax felt anticlimactic, and that's why that's getting 0 points. The resolution, I usually look for a calming down moment and a sense of new norm. And when it comes down to this, how do you calm down from a moment that's already calm, that's already somber? You don't, because it's anticlimactic. You don't feel that sense of calming down, letting out that breath. It just doesn't occur. And also, because our main character, Robert De Niro, is steadfast in his resolve throughout the film, he's mainly the same character from beginning to end, and he doesn't grow very much. I mean, he feels more and more depressed as far as his actions go, but he still remains steadfast. So it doesn't really come down to a new sense of norm per se. So at the end of the day, when I add all of these points up, out of 20 possible points, you got 6, which comes up to 30%. The narrative isn't very strong. The way that the movie is made, on the other hand, is. There's great visuals, there's great cinematography, there's great editing, great performances, great use of dialogue. But when it comes down to the narrative and how this film sticks together as one cohesive story, it's a little bit weak, I'm sorry to say. Anyways, guys, that's all I have for you. Let me know what you thought about The Irishman in the comments down below, specifically when it comes down to the narrative. What did you think about the story? And as for YouTube, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button if you like this narrative analysis. Don't forget about the thumbs up button, because that helps out my channel, and the little bell icon helps notify you when I come out with my next narrative analysis or review or ranking video. Until next time, peace out!